Hello, welcome to the video notes for lesson 4-3, and this is slope-intercept form part 1. So our target for this lesson is I can write linear equations in slope-intercept form. Alright, so that's a new term, that's new vocabulary for us. Slope-intercept form is the way that the equation looks, and it looks like this: y equals mx plus b. Now some of you might be saying, what's with all the letters? Alright, let's go through and explain what everything is. I don't need to explain an equal sign or a plus sign. Y and x you should already know. You got input and output. X is input, Y is output. Those are variables, those are changing. M and B are something new. We've been already discussing and talking about what M is. M is slope, or rate of change. And you find that by doing change in y over change in x. Pretty simple, okay? B is going to be something called y-intercept. If you think what the word intercept means, it's when something runs into something else or crosses something else. Okay, I often think of a football reference. Intercept. An interception is when the other team catches the football when a quarterback's trying to make a pass. For those of you that aren't familiar with football or don't care about football, here's what you need to know. The y-intercept is when the input or x equals 0. Now, this is helpful when we're dealing with an equation or a table, and sometimes a graph too. But when I'm looking at a graph, so this first example, based on the information in the graph, how far will a car travel after 12 hours? We're going to answer that after we write our equation. When I'm looking at a graph, it's when the line, or where the line crosses the y-axis. And luckily for us, in this one, it crosses at the origin. That's where x is equal to 0. And guess what? Y is also equal to 0 in this problem. Alright, so we need to write an equation that looks like this. Y equals something times x plus or minus something else. Alright, well, this is going to be m, or the slope. Find the slope, we do change in y over change in x. There are a few different strategies for finding this. If you're looking at your graph, it goes up 30, not up 1, but up 30, and over 1. So change in y is 30, change in x is 1. So if I go up to my equation here, I'll change the color. 30, or 30 over 1, is that. And then, where does it cross the... so this is equal to m, by the way. Where does it cross the y-axis? At 0, 0. So my b is equal to 0. The y value here is 0. Now, some of you might be saying, well, yeah, but in an equation, we don't need to write plus 0. You're absolutely right. So the final equation that we're going to have is y equals 30x. And you don't have to put plus 0. So there's the answer for writing the equation in slope-intercept form. Now, let's answer this. How far will the car travel after 12 hours? So this 12 is going to get plugged in for either x or y. time is the x value or input, so it gets plugged in for x, so y equals 30 times 12, and all of you should know that that is 360. So how far will the car travel after 12 hours? 360 miles. And I should put that in a sentence as long as I've got it labeled for this part. The key idea here is, I know there was a question asked in this problem, but the concept for this video lesson is writing these equations. Okay? Alright, so we will use the equations to answer the questions, however. Based on the information, how much money will a child owe their parents after 9 weeks? Let's not worry about answering this one. Let's just go ahead and write the equation. So I need y equals some number times x plus some other number. Remember, m is equal to change in y over change in x. So how much does y change each time? It's going down 40, and it's going over, or to the right, 2, which means it's negative 20 over 1, or just negative 20. B, the y-intercept, when x is equal to 0. That's right here, where the line crosses the y-axis. So when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 200. So B is the 200, not the whole point, actually. So this is actually not correct. Okay, so now I need to plug it into this equation. M is negative 20 over 1, so I get y equals negative 20, or negative 20 over 1, x plus 200. Now, if this is a negative number, you can do plus, negative, whatever, but that would just make it negative 20x minus whatever that number is. Remember, adding a negative is like subtraction. Okay, the last example on page 10. Again, we're just going to focus on the equation, not answering this question. Oops. Mx plus b. You got to find two things, m and b. M is going to be the change in y over change in x. So, what's happening here? Goes up 25. Goes to the right 1, up 25 over 1. So 25 over 1. Now, if you did this a different way and came up with something like 100 over 4, I would expect you to simplify that. But for m, we get 25. B, that's here, this point, where it crosses the y-axis. So B is equal to, that's when the input value is 0, so it's 50. So what is the equation? Y equals 25x plus 50. Now, remember, it makes sense, it's good math to keep your slope as a fraction. It can be a decimal sometimes, that's okay. But typically you'll see them as a fraction, so just be aware of that. Okay, let's go ahead and look at some of the examples on the next page. So here we have a little review of what we're talking about with our slope-intercept form of a linear equation. It's the y equals mx plus b. You're finding slope, you're finding y-intercept. Y and x are the variables. Those stay y and x until you get an input or an output value. M and B are the things we're trying to find. Now we're going to ask this a different way. I'm giving you the equation. You're asked to find the slope and the y-intercept. So we want to know what M equals and what B equals for each of these. Now, I always thought of, well, m is the number next to the x. When I look at this, I don't see a number, but you do see a sign, a symbol, a negative. So you need that. Remember, if there's no number in front of a variable, it's always 1. So this is -1 for the slope. And this is the y-intercept, +2. Now, it's okay to put the sign if you want, because in some instances you're going to see a negative, like over here. So you can't forget that. If you just put 6, well, let's go ahead and skip over to this one. If you just put 6, that will be wrong. M is all of this, so it's -6. Or excuse me, B, the y-intercept. M is the number in front of x, which in this case is a fraction 1/5. Over here, some of you might be saying, oh, well, this doesn't have a y and an x. Yes, it does. It just looks different. Y, x. All right, so our m is 4.50. Remember, I said you can have a decimal. You don't typically see it, but you can. And then the b is plus or +25. And then the last one here, this one's kind of tricky. Again, it doesn't have a y or an x. It does. It's just different. There is no plus or minus anything. Remember, it could be a +0, or it is. So m is 40.5, and x is, or excuse me, not x, b. The y-intercept is 0. Okay, now we're going to take all of this and we're going to now put it in equation form. So if we're given m and b, write an equation, y equals -3x, there's my m, plus 8. I think this is pretty simple. I think in the video it's getting a little long, so I think you can do the next 3 on your own. And I want you to try to answer the one below. That's 4 problems. So that's 4 bonus points on your scoreboard if you do these on your own and share your answers in math. But the only rule I have is that I want different people to share their answers, and I don't want you giving answers to somebody so that they will share it and you get the points. I want to see who actually does this. Alright, if you had any trouble with this, go back and rewatch the video, ask an adult or friend for help, or come and see me. Good luck, and we'll see you in math.